a flower?
If you go down to Willow Farm.
Paul Conroy, who was working with us as an agent, and apparently I think Glenn Coulson, we're talking about ways of trying to market this record, and I think Paul got the music, but it wasn't really Glenn's cup of tea at all. But when they saw the cover and saw this fox character, they thought, oh, maybe we should, pay someone a few quid and have them wear a fox head. And then I thought, well, actually, if we're going to do that, I should try doing that. So I took a red dress from my wife's wardrobe. She told me since it was an Ossie Clark dress, it would probably be worth quite a lot now, and I could just about get into it. I put the fox head on, and the first gig was actually in this old boxing ring in Dublin, which, while now being a very progressive, tolerant, open city, at that point, there was a shocked silence when I walked out on stage. Seeing a man in a dress and in a sort of animal head there was a visceral sense of shock that you could feel, and I thought, oh, that's interesting, we'll do that a bit more.
Pete probably very clearly realised that if you try to run it by the band and get a committee vote on it, we'd all have said you've got to be kidding, so he cleverly appeared on stage with a red dress and a fox's head, and we all kind of just went, wow.
There was a ton of arguments about it, and I thought, fuck it, I'm just going to do it. Because we were always doing this sort of band democracy stuff, and actually it wasn't a real democracy because some people were more powerful than others, and the more bloody-minded of us tended to get their way more often, as it is in every band the world over.
We realised, the story is that, we did it and we weren't sure about it. We were happy enough with it in a way, but the next week he was on the front page of Melody Maker, so we thought, this is interesting.
And at that point, the band said, oh, maybe Peter has something. Perhaps we shouldn't fight him on all of this, because they definitely got front page good.
People often think it was the other way around, that the sort of he was depicted on the cover, but of course he just dressed up, which is funny in a way because we weren't too sure about that album cover. So but it sort of made sense when he did it. Suddenly he dressed up, turning up like that. And I can't remember exactly what I thought at the time. Really, I mean, it was probably didn't approve to begin with, but then got used to the idea.
Hey, my baby, don't you know our love is true?
Foxtrot always appears to me to have an album where things took us by surprise, as in Sub Was Ready and the end section, And later on in our career, that happened a lot more. But in those days, there were 5 of us full of ideas. It was a little bit of a sort of almost too many ideas going around. So bits like this, where things could just happen a bit freer, I think were great.
Well, Foxtrot was the first album to sort of, I think, where we kind of sounded sort of convincing to the outside world. I think we sort of convinced ourselves with the first 2 albums and convinced maybe our fans. And I thought, but I think Sub Was Ready just took it on slightly another level, and people could hear this album who had never heard Genesis before and be interested in it. And I think that was a significant moment. And it was, as I said, it was a minor hit. I mean, it wasn't a big hit, but it certainly was sold a lot more than its predecessors had.
I would summarise the period as a band trying to find its feet, hoping that the record company were going to renew their contract each album, and we were being given the thumbs up to develop very, very slowly, thanks to Tony Stratton-Smith, who was a wonderful man who signed acts who he felt passionately about, and he would give them and us many, many albums to make it. It was a very slow burn in those days. It was, there was nothing meteoric about the rise of Genesis.
I was definitely getting to feel like a band, and I think Phil was certainly beginning to get more comfortable in terms of expressing himself musically, and Steve would be sort of would assert himself, but I mean, still slightly tentatively. I think, there was always a holding back element with Steve when I was there, and I think that loosened up. When he went from glasses to contact lenses.
I have very fond memories. We did most of it at Island Studios in Basing Street, and John Burns was the engineer, kind of helped us. And, hearing those things and hearing stuff was really put together, and it was very strong, We were actually getting somewhere, and here we had a great album. And this album, when it came out, did better than the one before, so it was all, power to the people.